Caregiving community, how are you guys? I know, right? It's been a minute. So let's give YouTube a minute to let people know that we're on and that we are live again. It's been such a long time, right? Let me just do this for a minute. Let's update on what's been going on since the last time I was on. This is for caregivers who are actively providing care to many people. It could be, parents, it could be your children, it could be anybody. Whether you're a family member or you're providing care for, someone on a professional level, right? So that's what we're here to talk about. Part of the caregiving community. I'm so excited because Hanson Caregiving Consulting Services has finally launched. I will be giving more and more update with some of the things that we're working on to be that resource for caregivers. And so I wanted to come on the live. We're going to be here for a minute because we're going to talk about one of the digital products. Now, for those of you who have been watching my videos, and first of all, let me just tell you guys, your girl misses you guys, right? It's been quite busy, quite busy. And so I'm finally getting a chance to kind of recoup and catch my breath and plan out for the remainder of the year, as well as plan out for what's coming up in 2026. So I'm so excited. Your girl is tired though, right? Because when you launch a business, well, I don't care what it is, right? It takes a lot of hand holding, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of meetings. I have been up at night kind of trying to chart out where I want to go, what I want to do, who I want to work with. And this is a joint venture because my husband is very much involved, right? And my family members are very much involved. In fact, one of the people I'm so excited to work with is my mom because I'm giving her care services and she is my ride or die. As I've said in many of my videos before, she is one of the ones who's always there for me. When you pop on, tell me that you're here, tell me where you're from. I'm so excited to be back doing a live. It's been a minute. I know I've been tired. I've missed my community. Missed talking to you guys directly. And so hopefully we can chit chat and catch up and find out what's been going on in the caregiving world. So a lot of people, you're used to me getting on early in the morning. I haven't been able to get on because life has been quite busy. But we're going to talk about the caregiving community. I know that I have put videos up about some of the things that are now available on our website. But instead of just telling you about it, I kind of want to walk through one of the packets with you. So we're going to go through the packet, the Caregiver's Guide, with some of the information that's contained here. And if any of you all are caregivers, if any of you guys are in a situation where you're providing caregiving services to either a spouse, caregiving services to an elderly parent or parents, right? If you're giving caregiving services to your child, or if you've chosen it as a profession, I would love to hear from you to see what your experience has been and see how we can continue to grow this community in order to be a resource. Because I'm going to tell you, you're going to get tired, right? You're going to need relief. And there's some things that you're going to need support for. And so that's the whole purpose of the channel, whole purpose of the business that we've launched. Hello to everyone. Good evening. Right now it's about 5:30 here. And so I hope that you all have had a wonderful day. I hope that you've gotten some rest. I hope you've, had a day full of wonderful activities. I hope if you're a caregiver, you've had some time out for yourself because time out for yourself is so important. Remember to just drop a chat and say, hi, how you doing? Tell me where you're from as a caregiver. Tell me what your concerns are. I want to take the time to really build our community and try to give each other that encouragement and support. And so if you've been watching the video, I'm here from the States. I'm located in Maryland. And so I am so excited to be able to hello, Lily. I'm so excited to be able to talk to some of the people I haven't talked to in a while, right? Because it's been a minute. It's been a while since your girl been on a live because I'm telling you, it's been busy. So let me just catch up for just a minute and tell you, you guys know my daughter got married. So that took a lot of my time, the beginning of the year. Yeah, I was emotional. I was an emotional wreck. And all of this going on while I'm also giving care services to my mom. Thank you, Lily. You have a wonderful day too. And so I haven't spoken to many of you in a while or gone live because I was inundated and feeling quite overwhelmed and burnt out. Some of the things I talked to you guys about in the video, the reason why we talk about it is because we as caregivers personally experience it, right? I'm human, you're human. We know how it feels to have burnout. And we know, and let me tell you, you don't just have to have burnout if you're a caregiver. You have burnout just because you get tired. Pinata, hello, how are you? Thank you for joining. Thank you for jumping on. Guys, tap the screen and give me some likes as well while you're here, or you're just passing through. Just tell me that you're here and hopefully you're having a wonderful day. And so part of the focus, when I thought about it, not only am I a mom and mothers, parents, fathers are caregivers as well, some grandparents are caregivers, but also I work full time. I also, I was married to someone who had a disability. I was a spousal caregiver, and I also am a caregiver currently to my mom. So some of the things that we talk about are things that I've lived. We've walked that path, right, as caregivers. And so we want to make sure, yeah, you can subscribe. If you go to my channel, you're able to subscribe. You guys, anybody out there want to subscribe, feel free to. The community is growing. I put up a video the other day about the caregiver boom. And I say boom because that's exactly what's happening, right? When you turn around, a lot of our parents are at a point where they need care and we got to give them care. Unfortunately, here in the US, the caregiving provisions are changing. A lot more family members are having to jump into the caregiver role. And so for some of us, that's not going to be easy. For some of us, you feel like you have some commitments and priorities already. And so you're trying to wiggle out time to figure out how you can assist with care to your elderly family members, and maybe parents or aunts or uncles, or, a spouse who is elderly as well, or either a spouse who needs some kind of caregiving services. We're all trying to figure this out, right? And in the midst of always worrying about other people, who do we forget? Us, right? We forget us. We forget that we get tired. We forget that we have burnout. And so this is not just for caregivers. It's in any area of life where you are experiencing that you may be tired and that you need that support. That's why we're building the community. And a lot of the things that we're accustomed to, right now, I know many of you know, if you live here in the States, we're in a government shutdown and people are hurting. They're feeling that pinch. And so they're going to look for resources to provide that help. But in the midst of all that, my concern is also just the caregivers and making sure that they are not experiencing burnout, because I go through that from time to time. I know how that feels. I know how it feels where you feel like you just need help. Hello, Ritaya, how are you? VJ. Okay, VJ. I saw the line. I'm sorry. Hello to you as well. And so here in the States, we're getting used to getting into that kind of mindset. I will tell you guys one of the things, because if you've been watching my channel too, I travel back and forth to Africa. My family is in Africa as well. And so one of the things that I really, really love about the environment, and you see it here in for families in the US too. Hello to everybody joined. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate and dropping in while we talk about caregiving services. We're going to get into that in a minute, but I just give everybody an update. Thank you so much for jumping on. I'm telling you, one of the things I love about the African environment and community and culture is that they are very, very family oriented. And I love the fact that that is also implemented in my family as well. I can't see one person that needs and not try to help them, right? And so in the caregiving community, that's how we are. We can't see our loved ones, a spouse, an elderly parent, or someone in need and not try to pitch out and help. You guys, thanks for jumping on. Remember just to hit the screen, give me some likes. Also, tell other people about it, because the caregiving community is definitely growing, especially here in the US. We need that support in order to continue to provide resources and to make sure that we're in tune to what the needs of the community are. And so if you're not having those tough conversations, our website at Hanson Caregiving Consulting Services is there in order to help you. So my name is Erica. Many people call me Essie, right? And you'll see on my channel, that's how I'm identified. I always say Essie out. This is your girl Essie. That became a nickname Congrats to my sister for coming up with it. And then that's how many people referred to me. They don't even remember my actual name anymore. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, VJ. So let's get into caregiving services and what we see as something that has become really a priority. So not only providing care, but making sure that caregivers themselves have what they need in order to provide those services. If you're now just getting into rendering care for, a loved one, rendering care services for someone who is in need, it could be a friend, a spouse, an aging adult, or your children. Children need care too. So you're going to need to know where to start off with the basics. And that's one of the digital products that's available on our website. This is my personal copy, but it is downloadable on our website, the Caregiver's Guide. It's a comprehensive guide to assist in beginner caregiving services. And so instead of telling you guys that the guides are available, I wanted to kind of go through the digital guides so you guys will know what you're going to get when you go to the website and actually start to download what's there and you start looking through the package. So if you are going to catch this after the live is over, you'll kind of have some kind of information on what's available, because all of us at some point, I keep telling you guys, I keep saying this over and over again, at some point in your life, you're going to be a caregiver, whether you want to or not. Some point in your life, you're going to be a caregiver. If you live long enough, you're going to have to provide care to a parent. You're going to have to, if you become a parent, you're going to be a caregiver. Your spouse can get sick and you're a caregiver. So at some point in your life, you're going to have those tough conversations. And it's not easy, but you're going to have them, right? And so you're going to have to know what to say and how to say it. Oh, I understand English, some not understand. I'm sorry about that. I wish I could speak your language. But please know that it's just about giving care and making sure that we understand what is needed. I'm so sorry. Your English is poor. Well, guess what? What language do you speak? Because mine is poor as well. My language and your language is poor. So trust me, I wish I could speak multiple languages. I think that's something I need to work on, right? And so, one of the things that you'll see here, I have a forward about myself, just a little bit about why I started becoming a caregiver. Many of you guys who watched my channel know that I started off, and when I thought about it, I've been a caregiver for quite some time, because not only, like I said, am I a mom, but I had a spouse who was sick as well. And so I was a spousal caregiver. And then I became a caregiver to my mom when my dad suddenly passed away. Now, I would help him out, but my dad was a man's man, right? You really didn't have to do too much with him. He was going to keep on going until he couldn't go anymore. And so it was very easy to help him with whatever supplemental stuff he needed help with, right? He'd call and say, Erica, can you come over? And then I was there. He'd ask for my children to help. We were there, right? And so being a caregiver to someone who really doesn't need that help, but yet needs some minor assistance, is not a difficult thing to do. It's when you're a caregiver to someone who really needs constant assistance. That's when you start getting to the thick of what it means to be a caregiver. So guys, continue to like the screen as you head on in, head on out. Thank you, VJ, for stopping by. I know your English isn't good, but I thank you so much for all the help and the support. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button throughout the live. So caregiving, as I said in this packet, is truly a labor of love. And the reason why is because when you think about what you have to do in order to perform caregiving services, it means giving a part of you, not just your love, but also your time, your attention, your physical strength, right? Your mental strength also is required when you think about giving caregiving services to someone. And it is not easy, especially when you look at it mentally and emotionally. You are watching someone who you love, if it's a family member, possibly deteriorate. Their health is deteriorating. And so it can be very, very emotional. And a lot of us, when we get started, we don't even know where to start. We don't even know where to go. So First, we in the packet, we're going to talk about noticing some red flags, right? Some things that you want to pay attention to long before it gets to the point where the person may actually start asking for caregiving services. You want to be in tune with what they may need. And so how you do that, you notice some red flags. You notice maybe the memory is not where it used to be. You notice maybe they're forgetting a lot more, forgetting where they are, not being familiar with the surroundings that they should be familiar with, asking questions over and over again. And you know, these are questions that they should know the answer to, right? Events that they talked about now seem foreign to them, you know, so you want to make sure that when you are looking at, especially if it's an elderly parent, that you are looking at where those caregiving services may need to start because you've noticed subtle red flags that will highlight that they need assistance. And so that's so important to do that as well. And so you also want to understand the needs of the person that you're giving care to. And so we broke it out in 4 different areas in this packet. And I'm just, guys, if you see me looking down, I'm reading right from my packet because this is what you're going to get. When you go onto our website, you're going to be able to download the packet and put it right into your box and get your own copy. So this one is the Caregivers Guide. This is for the beginner caregiver, those who are new to caregiving, and you notice that maybe a parent needs to now have caregiving services. There are certain things you want to look out for. Go get this guide. This is my personal copy. It's available on our website. And so I tell you guys about it in a video. We're going to start breaking down what some of these digital packets include so you have a little bit more information. Okay, so for this one, we broke it down into 4 key areas. And so the 4 key areas are organizing financial needs, right? Because that's important. And we're going to kind of get into the thick of that in just a minute. And then the second one is managing prescriptions, being familiar with what the needs are for your care recipient, when they need to take medications, what the medications are for, having those conversations with them and their doctors, and questions that you need to ask. And then also preparing for the doctor's appointment. So it's not easy just to go, you know, I'm going to take my mom and transport her to the doctor when she's immobile 99% of the time. It takes a lot of work just to get my mom to the doctor. It takes a lot. But as a caregiver, these are things that I need to be aware of. And if you are just beginning caregiving services, you have to be aware of it too. To the people that just jumped on, good evening. I don't know where you're located, but I hope you had a wonderful day. This is your girl, Essie. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've been on because things have been crazy and hectic. But I'm back now, and we're going to get into this caregiving and build this community as a resource for caregivers who need that encouragement and support. So if you haven't, first and foremost, like the video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. But then we are going to kind of go a little bit in depth on this packet that's available on the website, what's contained here, the Caregiver's Guide, so that you, if you or someone you know is just starting to provide caregiving services, here are 4 areas where I had to pay attention to in order to provide care. Now, if you have a question about caregiving, feel free to jump on and ask. If I can answer the question, I'm going to be able to answer that question. If I don't, I'm going to get to the resource that will be able to assist you with the question, right? And we're just giving resources to caregivers for what they need to know in order to begin those services, because it can be taxing, it can be overwhelming, and it can be quite emotional, but you don't have to do it alone. And you can't pour from an empty cup. If you've seen my videos on my channel, you know I say that enough, right? So that's what we're here to help with. And so one of the things that we talked about also the 4th area, maintaining the human element. The first area we're just going to jump into because this is what you're going to get when you talk about downloading this packet, organizing the financial needs. So a little history on this one. When you have someone who is in need of care services, and hello to everybody who just jumped on. When my dad passed away suddenly, I didn't know anything. Like, I had those conversations with him. I had asked him, hey, Dad, what do you want done? You know, how do you want me to handle this? How do you want me to handle that? But when I went into his office, and we had seen some mental decline in my dad. We had seen that, you know, he was not healthy, but we didn't know how bad it was. But when I went into his office, it was utter chaos. I'm gonna be honest with you. Now the bills were paid, but he wasn't recording anything and nothing. And this was what was so unusual because my dad was such an organized man. right? My dad wrote everything down. He kept meticulous records up until a couple of years before his death. So me looking for stuff, it was all over the place. And then I realized when creating this caregiver's guide that that is one of the foremost areas that you as a new caregiver want to tackle. Hello, Shaid. How are you? Thank you, everyone who's jumping on this evening. Thank you for sharing this time with me on the live. We're talking about what a beginner caregiver needs to get into in order to provide those services. Before we continue, anybody out there, caregiver? Anybody? And here's when I say a caregiver. Are you giving care to an elderly parent? Are you giving care to a spouse who's sick? Are you a parent? Because my goodness, if you are a parent, you're a caregiver. So let me know where you're from and let me know if you hit any of those categories. So the first area that we're going to discuss in this packet is organizing financial needs, making sure that when you go and have this conversation, you have a parent or a spouse or you have, a kid or something that needs help. You're able to organize. No habla inglés? No habla español. I'm so sorry, Irene. But thank you for gracias for jumping on. How about that? And so you want to make sure that they are organized financially. You want to make sure that number one, you obtain the legal right in order to act in their behalf. And these are the conversations and discussions that you're going to have with them, right? It's going to be hard to kind of open them up. But as a caregiver, if they trust you to provide care, if they trust you and your team, because you want to make sure you have a support team in place too, to provide care, they should be having these conversations with you. And you should be able to ask them certain things about their financial status in order to know what they qualify for, right? Because you got to have these open conversations. I'm a caregiver. I want to know financially where you stand as a care recipient, not to take advantage of you, but to make sure that you're getting the health care and the other services that maybe the government will assist with when the government is up and running. Okay, I'm just going to let that go. Now, when the government is up and running, you are able to tap into those resources that the care recipient needs. So one of the things that's discussed in this packet is some of the legal areas that you're going to have to help them through and that you're going to have to question them about in order to help them, get that power of attorney, making sure that that allows you to operate and speak in their behalf and manage their finances. How about when my dad set up online accounts? The good thing about him is that he did write down some of the passwords to those accounts. So I was able to go and access the accounts. And then my mom offered assistance in having me added to those accounts, right? Because you want to make sure that you as a caregiver or your support team, whoever's going to be handling the financial responsibilities, are able to then access those accounts in order to pay bills, right? Life will have to continue. And the goal of the caregiver is to provide comfort to the care recipient. So you have to make sure that things will go smoothly, that they are not anxious, that they're not worried. Thank you for jumping on. Those of you who are on, remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share. I'm going to say that periodically as we go throughout the caregiver guide, this packet, and talk about what's needed for beginning caregivers. If you've missed this, I'm going to have it reloaded up on live. And so hopefully you'll be able to get it. And don't forget to subscribe and share it with other people as well. As you pass through, I know it's the early evening. People getting home, they getting dinner ready. You're tired. You've worked all day. Well done. Thank you so much for joining and spending some time with me this evening. I really appreciate it. So getting back to the list. I told you I'm going to be reading from this list, right? Just giving you guys just a little bit of tidbits of some things and some areas that you want to cover if you are now beginning to render caregiving services to someone who is in need. So you want to get the legal authorization in order to act in their behalf, the power of attorney, get access to those accounts. You also want to make sure, and I'm going to tell you something else, and this may be a little bit touchy, you are going to have to make sure you get a copy of that death certificate if you're taking over for someone. Let's say in my situation, my dad had passed away. In order to gain access to some of his accounts, I did have to prove that he had passed by means of the death certificate. So you guys want to make sure that you get a hold of that as well. And then financial accounts, sit down with the person, see what, access you can get, how much they pay for rent or their mortgage. You want to make sure that you have access to the utility bills and make sure that you're able to gain the access there so that you can pay them. You want to make sure that any credit cards or subscriptions that they have and banking institutions that they have access, or you or someone responsible has access. Hello, Big Papa, how are you? Thank you guys for jumping on. Thank you for the likes. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And you know what, Irene, I know you don't speak English, but if you catch this on a rewind, I'm going to have some of these digital guides translated. That's going to be coming up because I think this is something and information that's going to be so important for so many different people in different languages. I'm glad you're doing great, Big Papa. We are talking about rendering caregiving services to people who are in need, and we are a community of caregivers. That's what my channel is about. That's what I am. I am a caregiver to my mom, and I am a mom myself, as well as a history of caregiving to a spouse who needed it. So, therefore, when you have that situation, we all need to support and encourage each other because we have burnout, we get tired, and so we don't want that to happen to the caregivers. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Getting back to the packet that's available on our website at hansoncaregivingconsultingservices.com, you know, the person that you're rendering care for, if they're an elderly person, they may have 401ks or stocks and bonds, annuities and things like that, that they will need to access. You want to make sure, thank you, Big Pop, I appreciate it. You want to make sure that they still have access to those accounts and that the actual person that will inherit those accounts. So the beneficiaries, I'm looking for the word so you know I slowed down. Did you notice that? Because the mind had, it just went in my head and it went right out the ear. Y'all didn't catch it? Okay, it happened. So you want to make sure that the beneficiaries are up to date. And so you're going to have those conversations with the recipient of care, as well as any other support team, your family members that are going to be assisting you with the care, because that's the information that you need to start addressing early on when you are giving care. Now, this is not something that you take and you blast it out to the rest of the family. I'm going to be honest with you. You still want to keep that information tight. And if the person receiving care with you, from you, trust you, then you want to keep that trust intact. So it's not like I'm going to get someone's social security number and I'm going to blast it out. Oh, you know, they had so and so. That's not what we do as caregivers, right? We just want to make sure that all of the information that they have access to is up to date. And if they can't render care for themselves, that we are able to act in their behalf. And so you're going to need access to some of this information that's located inside our digital relief packet, our digital packet for caregiver guide. Thanks for everybody who jumped on. Remember to hit me some likes, hit the screen, like and share, subscribe, let people know that the caregiver community is growing. The reason why we're doing this and why I started this business is because there is a caregiver baby boom, right? So the baby boomers, my parents' generation, they're getting older. Who's going to give them care? If I can't afford to have people come in the house, like I can't, it's going to be me, right? It's going to be family. That's to support. And so I love my mom to pieces. I loved my dad. And so for many of us in this situation, we're going to keep it moving. We're going to make sure our people, we hold it down tight for them and make sure that they are taken care of. But we also want to make sure we don't burn ourselves out in the process. Another thing that's in here, don't just get a hold of the bills. Ask when the bills are due. How about that? Right? Because things are going to start coming out the woodwork, right? When people pass away or when you start having to manage other people's accounts, you want to make sure that you set up your own schedule and calendar based off of what they tell you just for that person's bills and their finances. So when I started helping my mom with her finances after my dad passed away, she has her own separate calendar, schedule, finances. That's her stuff. I help her with it. I help her manage it, but she mentally, she's still good to go. And so I didn't have to do much. I may do a lot of the legwork and running around, but that schedule, that making sure that the bills are paid on time, we work together to do that. But in order to establish that so that there is no kind of tension in the house, because don't nobody want to live with a lot of tension. I don't want to have to be rendering care to my mom and she got an attitude when I walk in the room. I didn't come in here with the mindset I'm going to take over from her, right? She still is her own person and I have to respect that even though she's a care recipient. Me as a caregiver, it wasn't my job to bogart and take over her life. I didn't walk in here and go, well, you know what? Daddy's gone, so I'm taking over everything. That's not who I am. This woman that raised me still needed respect. And I had to talk and have these conversations with her on how she wanted things managed in her house. And so as a caregiver, that's so important to realize that if that person still can talk, that person's thinking is still good, Right. Hola, Oscar. How are you? I'm not here to take over. I'm here to work with you. I'm here to get you what you need. And so these are the questions and topics that you'll find in the Caregiver's Guide. This is my personal copy. It is downloadable on our website for beginner caregivers, which is what we're talking about. This is the kind of information you need. Oscar, hit that like button for me and subscribe to my channel and let other people know. Big Papa, you do the same if you haven't done so already, that the caregiver community is growing. And so the business that I've started with my family and friends is to help support and be a resource for caregivers so that we don't go through burnout. What about recurring subscriptions? Because I'm going to tell you something else. You know, a lot of older people, if you're giving care to older people, they are the victims of these recurring subscriptions. And some of them they don't need. They don't even know that they're hitting the account. And so my mom and I had to do an account review, right? A review of her financial account and see what subscriptions she's had. There were some that she was double paying, right? And she didn't even realize it. Some that she didn't need. If you have a smart TV and you can stream through your smart TV, some of those other apps you really don't need. And so to be able to break that down to them and cut corners to save money and to cut costs is something else that you want to think about too. And that's also listed in the Caregiver's Guide that's digitally available on our website. So this guide is just a resource, once again, for people who are beginning care services. Another area that's on here for the checklist, if you're going to start organizing the person financially, is making sure that all of their medical insurance is up to date and that everything, you know what the ID is and what insurance program they're with. And we're going to get into who their doctors are, because that's all information that you want to capture early on. A lot of times, many of us are thrown into caregiving and we don't know where to start. Unfortunately, it can hit you by surprise, right? You don't know where to go. You don't know who to talk to, but you can talk to the care recipient or the family members who are helping the care recipient. And if you are a caregiver, if this is completely new for you, these are things that you want to discuss, which is why this caregiver's guide was created, so that you have access to that. So here's some things you want to consider. Create that bill payment calendar. Set up auto pay for bills that can be set up on auto pay. So the mortgage payment, certain utility bills, like the phone bill or the electric bill, you can set up those auto pays, right? Or, make sure you have the access to the online banking and other accounts that you'll need access to in order to pay the bills, that you are listed as a user as well, attached or authorized user on those accounts, so that you can assist with paying the bills if the person is not able to do so themselves. How about emergency contacts? So, if you are a caregiver, you don't know in case of dire emergency who you can answer. Now, Nathaniel, if your question is about caregiving and being new to caregiving, you can put it in the chat and I will answer the question if I can. And so I'm more than happy to do that. But that's what we are talking about, Nathaniel. I hope that's what your question is about. So go ahead and put it in the chat for me, Nathaniel, and I'll try to answer the question if you have it. And so you want to make sure that you know who the emergency contacts are, so that you know who to reach out to in case there is an emergency, whether it be additional family members who are responsible for certain aspects of care other than yourself, or doctors or specialists other than the PCP. You want to, if you have questions about the insurance, if you have questions about the mortgage or something like that, once you've been added as an authorized user, you want to make sure that you have those contacts somewhere handy so that you're able to render the assistance. Another thing that I had to think about when I became a caregiver to my mom, I actually moved back into her home. I'm still in her, my dad's house. It is full of memories. It's so cozy and warm. My kids and I are here. And so one of the things that I really had to think about was just the overall household responsibilities, right? Because caregiving is more than just giving care to the care recipient. I got to make sure the house stays intact. It would be horrible for me to come in here and give her care as a caregiver, and then the whole house need to be condemned after a year or so. And so finding those numbers of people that my dad used to work with or have services provided within the house was also something that was important. So you might want to write down those kind of contact numbers too. If something breaks in the house, what warranties are in place that could help you with repair issues. If you need contractual work done within the house, who do you call in order to get that done if the person already has set up a service that will provide that? And so those are the things that you want to keep intact and have at hand and have those conversations with the care recipient or the family members in order to, have that stuff ready. As a beginner caregiver, it will be invaluable. There's always going to be some kind of plumbing issue. There's always going to be, an HVAC problem of some sort, maybe an electrical problem, right? And so just to have information on any of those warranties that were put in place to make sure those warranties are paid and up to date for the home that you're living in or they're living in, as well as making sure that you know who to call simply who to call if there's an emergency of some sort is what you want to have handy. That's the information that we have available on our website to help people who are beginning caregiver services. So once again, for those who joined, thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it. We still got some time, but I'm just going to recap. We're kind of talking about this, the Caregiver's Guide. It's a comprehensive guide to assist beginner caregiving services. So if you're just now in the situation, and you probably will be, if you're just now getting into a situation where you will have to render caregiving services to someone, you want to make sure that you're covering all the bases off the bat. And so we talked about the finances, and now we're going to go into just managing prescriptions. Some of the things when you start talking to the care recipient, you want to be aware of, you're going to have to get their medical and prescription information. So that's going to be very important because you need to know what medicines they're on, the purpose of the medicine, when they take their medicine. Does it need to be with food? Do you want to take it without food? What the interactions will be, especially every time they start a new medication. How is that going to interact with what they're already taking? These are things that are on our checklist in this guide. And that's something that is so important. You want to make sure that you know their schedule, as I mentioned, any side effects, over the counter medication. Can they take that as well? Because on some of these medications, if they take the medicine and then you get them an over-counter medicine, it could interact and have a negative impact on what's already in their system. So you want to make sure that you know what their prescriptions and medication information is. What about coordinating with doctors and the pharmacy? So know who the prescribing doctors are. You're going to want to meet the doctors. We're going to talk about that next. You're going to want to be able to come in contact with them and have your questions answered about the care that is currently being rendered to the care recipient, especially if that's a family member, right? You want them to know that you are completely intricately involved in giving care to that person, and that it's important to you. And so you don't want them to feel like, sometimes with these doctors, and this is no shade on any doctors who may pop on, sometimes when you come in the office, you open your laptop, you turn your back toward the patient, they feel like a number. They feel like a number. They feel like they're not important. And you're so quick to push medicine and to feel like I'm going to get them the medicine and then they get out of my office, but as a caregiver, we need to go deeper. We need to understand the relationship that they have with the doctors that's prescribing them medicines. Ask about, how they coordinate with the pharmacy. Do they pick up? Do they mail order? These are the questions that you want to ask those who are, giving these medicines to your loved one so that the care recipient and you are well informed. You'd be amazed also sometimes when you're dealing with your parent who is getting older, they tend to be a little bit more forgetful and they tend to become nervous. You could watch someone who at one time was very outspoken, right? And now they're a care recipient. They're shy, they're a little nervous, they're a little anxious. And it can bother you emotionally to see them that way. But that's where you come in. You become their mouthpiece because you are now the caregiver and you are now the person that's speaking up in their behalf. And so that's something that is in this checklist that you want to digitally download so that you don't forget what you need to address with the doctor. So another couple of things to consider that's in the packet. Do you need language and hearing support for the care recipient? Check the effects of the prescriptions and make sure that there are not any complications. If they're complaining about feeling a certain way after they've started a new prescription, you definitely want to take a note of that and make the doctors aware of what's going on with the care recipient. Okay? Let's move on to another area. So we talked about organizing financially. We talked about the prescriptions, medication, and medical information. The third area that we're going to delve into is going to be preparing for the doctor's office. But before we begin that, I just want to say once again, thanks to everybody who has joined in. Thanks for the support from the caregiver community that I've received thus far. I've been very, very excited about the opening and launching of our business at Hanson Caregiving Consulting Services.com. I'm very passionate about it because I feel like it's something that's close at home to me. It hits at my heart. I hate to see people do without, and I hate to see people in need. And I know what that feels like, and I observe it on a day-to-day basis. And I know that the person that's receiving care needs that support. But I also am very much aware as a caregiver myself that caregivers can be the unsung heroes. I think of nurses who are often giving care, whether it be in a medical environment or in a home setting, or caregivers who work in a person's home. They are constantly rendering care, and they are truly the unsung heroes. And that's what's amazing. And so we want to make sure that they're appreciated and that they're not suffering from burnout. And so that's something that really motivated me to move forward with creating Hanson Caregiving Consulting Services.com. And I hope you guys will support the website and the launch of our business as we continue to grow and look at other avenues to render support to caregivers. Now, your girl been talking for almost 40 minutes, and I'm someone who loves to talk, but I also am someone who loves to hydrate. And even though this isn't water, this is coffee. And so give me a minute so I can get some coffee, okay? I drink coffee. Yes, I do. This is my second cup, though. I ain't gonna lie. Okay. Now I've said it. Now I'll be up all night, but that's another whole live. Okay. So the third part that we're gonna talk about is preparing for the doctor's appointment. We want to choose the right doctor and specialist. And there's some questions that are in this packet that will help us to be able to determine if that person is a good fit for your care recipient. I can't tell you how many doctors that I personally, you think about yourself too, how many doctors you worked with that you felt like they just didn't care? You're not hearing me, right? And so if I feel like you don't care when I come to you and you're my doctor, how am I going to trust that you are making good decisions and making good recommendations for me? And so in this caregiver's guide that's available on our website, we have a list of questions that you want to ask the doctor or the specialist that your loved one is going to be seeing in order to render care to them, right? They want to feel, or you want to make sure that they feel comfortable with this doctor. And even if it's a doctor that they've been seeing for quite some time, you also, as a caregiver, want to make sure that you're comfortable with them, right? And that you have that kind of relationship that you can build with them, professional relationship where you can ask them questions in behalf of the care recipient. Because if something happens and the care recipient is, incoherent, you want to make sure you being the mouthpiece or spokesperson for the care recipient that you can help them and that you can offer comments or questions on their behalf. You want to know their concerns and be able to express them to the doctor or specialist. So on list number 3, there is a list of questions that you can ask the doctor and the specialist as far as their insurance. You want to look and see what the distance is, how long you have to travel, especially if you have to transport, the patient to the doctor in order for care. Also you want to see if the doctor has good reviews, if the doctor is somebody that the patient will feel comfortable with, right? And if they're somebody who has a habit and a reputation for listening and to their patients and taking care of them. And then also think about when you're making the appointment, what is needed for the person. It's so easy. Think about it. When your children, if you're a parent, when they were babies and you took your baby to the doctor's appointment, I think I had to have a diaper bag. I had to have food. I had to have a change of clothes. I had to have, a plastic baggie in case my child went on themselves at the doctor's office. I had to have some toys, maybe a teething ring. I had to have a bottle in case they got upset. If they got a vaccination, I had to make sure that they had comfortable clothes. So think about all the things that we have to do in order to take our little ones to the doctors. Well, it kind of is similar when you're taking someone that's a care recipient to the doctor, because you want to consider their needs too, but it's on a different scale. And so here are some things that are listed that you're going to be able to download in a digital download, to see if it's something that you will have to address if you're going to make an appointment for a loved one to go to the care recipient, to the doctor as a care recipient. Now, above all, this whole packet is designed to do one thing, and that's to maintain the human element while giving someone care. Why is that even important? Because this person that you're giving care to, whether it be a parent, an aunt, uncle, a spouse, a child, a family friend, they're still human. They're still human. They have feelings and emotions, and they want to make sure that you remember that. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you make them feel valued and loved. And so our whole website, our whole business is making sure that the caregiver stays refreshed so that they can continue to give that love and show value to the care recipient. So if you're with me and you understand what that is like, and you are a caregiver, you know how important that is. I hope that you caregivers are buying out time for yourselves and getting refreshed and not suffering from burnout. I hope that you caregivers see the importance of taking the time to do, even if it's 10 minutes a day, to journal, to breathe, to just walk away from the situation if you have to, in order to be refreshed. And I hope that you all will benefit from our website and the digital products that are there in order to help you to reassess how you're giving care and how you can make minor tweaks and improvement in order to be a better caregiver. Now, one of the things that you can also do on our website, this is just one guide. This guide right here, the Caregiver's Guide, is just one of many guides that are up there. There are various guides: how to get relief as a caregiver. Kids can be caregivers. There's also having discussions about, the final arrangements, if that's something that's necessary. We have more digital packets that will be uploaded. But one of the things I'm also excited about is we have stories. We have stories. I can't talk stories for our caregivers. And why that's so important is because our caregivers, if you like me, I like to read. And I like to read stories of people who understand and I can identify with, who have gone where I've been, or who are walking the same path that I'm walking. And so, under our Life Journey Chronicles section of the website, you will find those stories. Also, there are newsletters that are there. We haven't uploaded October yet. I'm working on getting that uploaded in the next day or so. But please make sure you go on and subscribe to our website so that when the newsletter drops and other information, you're informed about that as well. It's been real. I'm happy to be back on live with you guys. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful evening. This is your girl, Essie. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, share. I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup, so take some time out for yourself as a caregiver. Until next time later on this week, I'm out.